All right, we're recording. Good afternoon, everyone. It's Ricky Taug at the University of Florida. And today is our final Society of Agricultural Communication Scholars webinar for the 2023-2024 academic year. And so today we have Jeff Miller and Taylor Ruth, who will be discussing science communication in agriculture. As our practice is, it's really up to the presenters how they would like to take questions, whether during the presentation or at the very end of the presentation. And then depending on what time we have left after their discussion and presentation, then we have some time, hopefully, for questions for the entire group, any announcements, job postings, anything going on in our departments. And conferences or anything like that, announcements will take place at the very end. With that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Jeff and Taylor for the presentation. Take it away, Jeff.
Okay, thanks, Ricky. And I'm happy to be interrupted along the way. I'm sure Taylor's all right with that too as we go. But there will be time at the end also for some discussion and some reflection. But let me share my screen and get started. So Taylor and I have sort of volunteered to take the lead on this multi-state project called Science Communication in Agriculture, Food, and Natural Resources. We led a workshop at right after NACS in February in association with the Southern, in association with SAS. And a lot of what you guys see here, if you were at that meeting, you'll remember some of it, because this is a little bit of a rehash of how our multi-state project in science communication got started. But it is also this time a progress report because some things have happened since then. We've added a new leader in Lisa Lundy, who's on today. And we've also made a little bit of progress by identifying work groups, and some of the work groups, at least one of them, has already put together a short collaborative grant proposal, which is progress, right? So we're going to talk about all those things and how this group might serve you all in the future in terms of trying to do collaborative work in the realm of science communication. So what we'll do today is sort of do a rehash of our multi-state project purpose and objectives. And I'll explain to those of you who haven't been in on this discussion what a multi-state project is all about. And then we will just briefly give more recognition to those who were involved in writing this project up and providing the initial impetus for developing this multi-state project. We'll look at the organizational structure, and then we'll look at the focus areas. Taylor will lead us through the focus areas and work groups that we have identified through our meeting in February. And then we'll talk about our work group progress. And then we want to share with you some things that have happened in terms of progress. And we want you to talk to us about what you are doing at your home institutions in terms of science communication, research, and/or teaching. So multi-state research projects or multi-state MSPs are really about getting states to collaborate. And this is an effort that is sort of sponsored by state agricultural experiment stations and their group of directors that has its own association. It's funded by Hatch Multi-State Research Fund, which is provided through NIFA. So those organizations are all behind this effort to develop multi-state research projects. And as most of you know, there are multi-state research projects in all kinds of disciplines and on all kinds of topics. But there hasn't been one lately on research in ag communications, and that's really what this MSP is about. So the goals, as with most MSPs, would be to collaborate on grant-funded projects that may support research, teaching, or service, as well as work together across states and across institutions to publish scientific manuscripts as well. So here were the initial, and they still remain, objectives of our project. And the first is to identify the best tools and practices for science communication related to ag, food, and natural resources. We want to identify audiences. Usually the audiences we work with in ag communications are agricultural producers, consumers, and policymakers, but there may be other audiences. And we want to identify how best to communicate scientific messages across those audiences. And then secondly, to enhance academic programs and to provide the workforce with skilled science communicators. So those two are the big overarching goals that this MSP is focused on. A little bit of history. We had a technical writing team that put together the first proposal, and there they are. And then we sort of moved into a planning team from that stage, and with the help of Cindy Morley, she works for the Southern Association of Ag Experiment Station Directors, whose headquarters is on our campus, and that was really the connection and why I got selected to lead this group. But once Cindy Morley got us to the point of having a proposal together, and we got the proposal accepted, we were able to put together this planning team that involved myself and Taylor Ruth, Latasha Ford at Fort Valley State, Laura Fisher at Texas Tech, Lex Lamb at Georgia, and Katie Sanders at North Carolina State. They were all very involved in sort of helping us envision what this multi-state project might look like. As that team was working on a plan, we put together a structure, an organizational structure, and I became the chair, I guess because I had led the project to that point. And we identified Taylor Ruth as someone who wanted to serve as vice chair and who is very capable. And so she and I have been working together on this, and we together presented at the first meeting, that first inaugural meeting in Atlanta. And then since then, we have recruited Lisa Lundy to serve as the secretary. And this will be eventually a rotating executive team. I'll rotate off, and Lisa will become the vice chair, and Taylor will become the chair. More on the organizational structure. This project involves work groups. So we decided to organize this effort by focus area. And we're based first primarily on communication research interests. So we were able to identify about 5 areas of communications research focus, and Taylor's going to share how we came about arriving at those and share with you what those focus areas are. And those focus areas have become work groups. And then within those work groups, we're going to be looking at the scientific challenges there and sort of begin to work in scientific problems and combine them with our communications problems and see where those nexuses lie and begin doing research at those points of interest. The work groups obviously are going to strive to involve other subject matter experts from other disciplines to allow us to take a team approach. So we don't just want communications researchers working on these projects. We want to try to get some scientists involved in our work as well, so that we're collaborating not only with each other, but across other disciplines. So right now, the work groups are about to begin meeting on their own schedules. And those work groups will start by brainstorming ideas about which direction collaborative research should take. There will also be a social media account that will allow us to all keep up with progress throughout the year. And we'll work. I think Taylor and I will have that up and running pretty soon. We do need 1 member from each state. If you have signed up in our NIMS system to be a member of this project, then we need someone to be identified as the PI, and they will be responsible for providing their state's annual report, basically reporting on what research related to this project has occurred across in that year. We will also, at our next annual meeting, ask the work groups to provide non-official progress reports. So our actual official progress reports have to be by state, but the non-official progress reports are going to focus on what the work groups themselves have done. And also Taylor has set up a Google Drive directory, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. All right, so at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Taylor, and she's going to tell you about the focus areas that we sort of landed on and how we arrived at those focus areas, which became the themes for our work groups. Taylor?
Yeah, sure thing. Yeah, when we first started having these conversations, we went back and forth about if we focus these work groups around these large grand challenges, these wicked problems, these AF&R topics in science, or if we focus in our science communication kind of topic areas instead. And these really influence one another, and they're highly integrated, right? So it's kind of hard for us to figure out, well, which comes first, the chicken or the egg. Ultimately, though, we're all, communications faculty, and that's why we decided to focus our work groups around those communication focus areas rather than those AF&R science topic areas instead. But we do think that those individual work groups are still going to identify those grand challenges that might connect a little bit more clearly within those SciComm work groups that they have. So I think those will still come up. When we first started putting these work groups together, we sent out a survey to all of the faculty who had signed up in NIMS for this multi-state project already to collect a little bit of information about what their communication, their science communication expertise focus area was, as well as what types of AF&R science topics they typically research within the context. And when we asked them about that context for the research, we put together kind of a word cloud to see what they were looking at. And agriculture, of course, since most of us are within that traditional ag comm field, but there was a lot of people doing research within the area of water quality and water quantity, climate change, food safety, animal agriculture, biotech was coming up quite a bit as well. And we see that there's this kind of big variety of topics within the context for that SciComm research. So that's another reason why we wanted to focus within these kind of larger umbrellas of communication topics, so that way people could then figure out what their focus would be or the context. So you can go to the next slide. So the way we are looking at this project is science communication is kind of that big bubble that we fall within, and those AF&R topics that we're researching, that's what kind of each group is going to decide what they might focus on. There might be multiple focuses as well. And what's nice is if we have two different communication focus groups that are kind of going after the same topic from different approaches, those groups can come together on some of these larger grants and some of these larger proposals as well to focus on these grand challenges from different approaches, which I think is going to be really exciting to see what can come out of this multi-state with this type of setup. And so those groups that we have, I think is on the next slide, maybe, yeah. So, and this is based off of what people put into that survey. During our national meeting, we also had a conversation to see, is this a good place to start? And it seemed like it was a fairly good place. There might be some things that we adjust over the next year as people start to go to their groups and things shake out, but crisis and risk communication was one of those topics that a lot of the members for this multi-state said that they were interested in. Media literacy was also a topic of interest too, as well as science communication pedagogy. And I'll pause here just to say that this pedagogy piece, I do think falls under each of these topics. So with crisis and risk communication, there's research to be done there, but there's also education opportunities there too. So if you remember back to the two objectives for this multi-state, it's not just looking at the research piece, but it's also looking at the education and curriculum development piece too. So education's in all of this, but we did find that some people were a little bit more specifically focused on that pedagogy piece. There's also quite a bit of interest with technology adoption, decision making. During the national meeting, there's some conversations about, well, sometimes these are a little bit different, right? Decision making doesn't always have to do with technology adoption. This group, the way they ended up forming together, did focus highly on the tech piece of it. I will say that. So that might be one that evolves a little bit over time. And then this last group, this was kind of a catch-all for a lot of these different topics that have some overlap in some ways, but then we realize there are some differences too. So this ended up being a larger group, and this might evolve over time too. Our current group leader said she wants to keep it all together for right now, but in the future, I could potentially see some subgroups coming from this one. But this is our public communication strategies and message development group is what we called this. So topics like policy communication as well as issue management fell under this working group as well. So those are those main ones that we identified from the survey. And when we went to our national meeting, we had some sticky notes up around the room with these topics and let people self-select into them. And then we had each group identify who would be their leader just to get things started and get this ball rolling. So as you can see, a lot of people gravitated towards our public communication message development group. So Dr. Laura Fisher from Texas Tech is leading that group right now. We also had a lot of people going to that tech adoption and decision-making group, which is currently being led by Dr. J.B. Gregg, who's here at the University of Tennessee. Actually, nobody at the national meeting went to the science communication pedagogy group, but several people emailed us after the fact saying that they were interested. So Dr. Keisha Settle at Oklahoma State is now leading that group. There's also a media literacy group that's being led by Dr. Jeff Miller here on the call. And then finally, our crisis and risk comm group led by Dr. Kara Lawson at Ohio State. These groups, though, people don't have to just be in one. If you're interested in being in multiple groups, you're of course welcome to join that. But what we're hoping from these groups is that they're able to have their own meetings on their own timeline to discuss about potential funding opportunities, opportunities to collaborate for data collection, data analysis, writing and submitting to conferences and journal articles too. But we're also hoping that at least once a year, we're able to bring these groups together on Zoom again to talk about what we're doing, to see if there are any intersections or any opportunities for these groups to work together or even to work with other faculty at our different institutions for some of these larger multidisciplinary grants that science communication is such a key part of. So this is what that structure looks like right now. I think it'll keep evolving, but it's kind of nice that we can see this as already has interest and we can see where that interest falls. And you also have an idea of what these members are, most interested in too, when you look at this, if you're ever looking for collaborators as well.
I think it's important to think or to pay attention, I think, to the science communication pedagogy work group, because like you said, that really cuts across all of these issues. And even though we didn't have anyone sort of sign up for that group initially, and we know we're all involved in teaching our students to be better science communicators. Almost all of us are. And so I think that was a given. But if you think about the objectives I shared with you earlier, that's the second objective, the pedagogy part. And we do want to be sure that it gets its fair attention as we work to find ways to collaborate. So we are trying to find ways to collaborate on research on pedagogy, but also if there's some type of teaching or extension related project that helps improve professionals or students' ability to communicate about science, then that is fair game here. So we want to be sure that pedagogy remains a big part of what we're hoping to collaborate on. Okay, so some progress, and Taylor, jump right in if you want to. We have been able to get 24 members sign up in this information system that is operated by our experiment station directors. That also, in addition, we have 2 NIFA reps, Edwin Lewis and Faith Peppers, who are members of this group, and Cindy Morley is our administrative assistant. I mentioned her earlier, and Scott Senseman at Oklahoma State is our administrative advisor. So we have 28 people who have at least taken the time to go through that paperwork and who are dedicated enough. And believe me, if you can make it through that paperwork, then you have shown some dedication to being involved in this group. So if you guys want to be a part of this group officially through NIMS, whether you're at a land grant or not, we are happy to help guide you through that process. If you want to be on the communications direct line of communications from the group, then we can get you signed up in the NIM system. And I'm happy if you just want to send me an email or call me I can point you in the right direction. So we've got all that done. We have a work group team leaders meeting coming up, I think on April 17th in 2 days. And so each of those folks who's leading a work group, we're all going to get on the same page about what our next steps are in terms of getting our groups together and how we're going to talk about how we're going to operate and communicate our progress. And then also Taylor has set up some shared drive space for us. Each work group has its own folder on our Google Drive. She has shared that with the membership, and she got a folder for meeting notes, folder for projects, and that's sort of a miscellaneous type folder, and a folder for relevant literature if people want to share articles and publications. So pretty good start to our communications network.
Can I just add something real quick? Because there's some people on the call that were here at the February meeting as well. So I do still have your email to add you to that. I've added all of the work group leaders now just to get started. So after we meet on the 17th, they're going to hopefully be sending out an email to meet with everybody who has already joined a work group. And then at that time, I'm going to add everybody else to that shared folder. Just that way we weren't throwing everything at y'all all at once. So you will be getting that invite soon. And if you are wanting to join this project and want to kind of be added to this work group, I can drop my email in the chat. And if you want to send me whatever email works best for you to be added to a Google Drive, for some people it's compatible with your work email, but I know at my previous institution, it was not. So if you've got a Gmail that works better, you can send that my way. And I am more than happy to add you to that. Also, on the previous slide where you saw kind of that table with all the different work group members, you'll find that in this Google Drive too. And I think it just says work group members might be the title of it. If you do want to join one, go ahead and go to this document, type your name in, and then just shoot an email to whoever is identified as at the top as a lead, just so that way they know to include you as well when they start to schedule those things. So I just wanted to add that, but you should hopefully be getting an invitation to that Google folder here soon. And then just one other thing on the next slide, Jeff, if you click on that. So this update from Jamie Gregg, this was actually with the technology adoption group. So I want to make sure he got his credit there.
Yep.
Perfect. Yep. That's it. That's all I have for the Google Drive.
So so speaking of that group, the Tech Adoption and Decision Making group was the group that was able to get a seed grant submitted at the University of Tennessee. And the idea is to support a pre-conference workshop before NACS at SAS next year in Irving, Texas. So that's a good step in the right direction. Okay, we're sort of to the point of discussion. I think it would be really interesting for Taylor and Lisa and me and anybody else, any of the group leaders, work group leaders who are on today, to find out more about what kinds of science comm projects are going on at your institutions, and if there are opportunities with those related to those to collaborate across states, because again, that's really what this multi-state project is all about. So what's going on out there? I'll start. I am really excited about a graduate students research project that I'm working with, and he is looking at social media use by extension agents and looking at how they communicate about science to their clientele, and especially how they combat misinformation and disinformation that their clientele may be consuming. So really looking forward to sharing that at ACE. We got a conference presentation, but I am definitely open, if anybody else is doing that type of research, to work with any other institutions on that type of study. Anybody else doing some cool stuff?
I can share a little bit about what Keystone Settle and I are working on right now. We have a Higher Education Challenge Grant that we are putting together a series of workshops for undergraduate and master's students, researchers focused on science communication. So that's why I think he ended up signing up to lead that pedagogy piece. So really focused on what are the most effective ways to provide training for those students who are not necessarily ag com, science com students, but how do we provide that communication training to those science students so that way they can be effective in the future when they graduate. So that is something we're currently recruiting students for and hopefully are able to launch in the fall.
Jeff, I'll let you call on people. If you're waiting for me to call on people, you can go ahead and do that. So I think Kelsey has her hand up. Then I'll let you call on
Okay,
people.
yeah, I can't see who has their hand up.
Oh,
so-
okay. Well, then I can do that. I can field hands, whatever. So Kelsey, go ahead.
Sure. I'm on a multi-state project with Nevada, Washington, California, Wyoming, Idaho, Utah, Arizona, and we've been looking at how to communicate about wild horse management issues in the Western region. And so I'm working with veterinarians, extension specialists, rangeland management, faculty, as well as the Bureau of Land Management and the Wild Horse and Bureau program. And so my role has been looking at how we can be communicating about the methods the BLM are using and about the policies, as well as best practices for communicating through social media and about their adoption programs and some of the other things they're doing. And it's been really interesting because I'm the only communication social scientist on the team. But it's been exciting to learn about their projects and then bring a perspective in on how can we be better communicating these efforts, because there's a lot of misinformation and a lot of heated topics when it comes to the wild horse care, especially about roundups, using some of the helicopters, the ATVs, some of the contraceptive methods. It's pretty controversial. And so we're looking at what messaging and who it should come from and when it should be delivered. And then what to do about comments from the public. Because right now the BLM just deletes them and has no response and ignores it. And we know that that is not the greatest method for communicating about scientific issues. And so we're doing meetings in May with them in Elko, Nevada, and then continuing every quarterly down in Salt Lake area, working to improve media relations and communicating about their topics.
Thanks, Kelsey.
Who is that over there?
It's me.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah, my name for some reason is not popping up. Actually, Jeff, I'm doing something pretty similar with a graduate student, working with extension, looking more on just ICTs in general, like how are we using tools to communicate? But he's wanting to look at sustainability messaging, which is highly scientific. And his background is actually in plant and soil science. So it's really cool to see a student with a what I would call bench science background moving into these communication concepts. It's been really fun to do that. But the cool thing that we're doing, and I hadn't really thought about it as science communication because I was looking at it from a global standpoint, because he's actually from Ghana and he's wanting to do a comparison on how are we communicating science in the US versus in Ghana back home with extension professionals. So a pretty unique take on this science communication topic, because I think we talk about it globally sometimes, but most of the time when we look at it, we're trying to fight our own battles here. And so we look at it from a domestic side, but he's really starting to look at it from what does that look like on both sides of the conversation, and how can we incorporate some strategies here and abroad. So yeah.
That's interesting. And by coincidence, my student who's working with on the extension project, he is also from Ghana. And yeah,
Well, there you go.
Or anyone else? Jason, you're up.
Thanks, Ricky. In kind of in tandem, but along the same veins, there's a group of us that have a project, another multi-state project in the review process. It's in its final stages. It needs edits here by the end of May. So it can be approved through the full system. Right now it's numbered temporarily as a NC Temp 1214, and the title is Integrating Science Communication with Team Science. And so our focus is more on capacity building within the system and kind of along the lines of what Kelsey was talking about of taking science communicators and science comm faculty and connecting them, preparing them, and then engaging them within the team science processes. So interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary, transdisciplinary type works, but really getting the discipline of and the expertise of science communication as a component within those bigger teams that are focusing on those bigger tasks, the wicked problems, whatever you want to describe those. As we are seeing our institutions are going much more in that area of interdisciplinary type work. So it's not fully approved yet, but it's out there. So if you want to search, you can go ahead and fill out, as Jeff talked about, the Appendix E form and be a team member of that. I will drop a link from the NIMS system into the chat so you can go read the description and learn more about the project as well. But it's Taylor started with this, but she had to bail when she moved out of the North Central region. She couldn't be on the proposal when you're not inside the region where it's being proposed from. But then also Jacqueline INJ, Dr. Nellie Hill-Solons there at K-State, and then also Joy Rumble at Ohio State, the Ohio State University are the core members on the development aspect of that team. And I get to serve. When you ask who's going to be administrative advisor and you're an administrator, your assistant or associate dean of research says, well, you can be. And so I will be the AA on the project. So once it gets approved in the system.
Thanks, Jason. And yeah, I should point out that these multi-state projects are connected to a region, but they're actually national projects. So they have to have regional leadership. So they have to have a regional home, but they are open to everyone nationally. And that's a little confusing to people who haven't been a part of multi-state projects before. But yeah, feel free. If you definitely do not have to be in the southern region to be a part of ours, nor in the North Central region to be a part of Jason's.
Katie and then Jacqueline.
Hey, I'm working with UC Davis and Jean Perella at Virginia Tech on some consumer research around CRISPR in pork production, and then translating those consumer perception surveys into issue guides and training for swine extension agents across the nation on how to navigate these kind of contentious scientific topics. And so hoping that will be a model for these emerging technologies, but pretty excited for that project. So I wanted to share. I also emailed UC Davis about our multi-state piece, so maybe we'll get a new member.
Connecting on some of those capacity building pieces. I run the Kansas Science Communication Initiative, which some of you might know about and maybe attended a webinar, but we offer professional development and a space for also building collaborations. We do like monthly webinars. They are actually like have an international audience. So we have a couple people from Australia and the UK that tune in or have served as guests. So speaking of people that you want to connect with audiences outside of COM, we have people from animal science, child development, a lot of people from extension, just an array of kind of more like technical, hard science, bench scientists that are tuning in for this professional development, but also community groups and organizations, science centers that work in our spaces. So if anyone has interest in that, definitely looking forward to doing more research on that side of like training in this kind of workshop space, or how do we get professional development and make, again, kind of helping y'all. I see like as we have these grants and multi-stage projects that want to have the collaboration between the sciences, that's kind of part of what we're fostering here through KSci. So if you want to be on an emailing list, let me know. I'll put my email in the chat for you.
Great. Anyone else? Okay. Anything else that y'all would like to add, Jeff, Taylor?
If you don't mind, I'm going to share my screen and sort of finish up here.
Sure.
Just some wrap up points I wanted to make. one of those points, not really on my slide here, but is that there is funding connected to being a member of this multi-state project. Your dean has some earmarked funds that can only be spent to support members of multi-state projects travel to the annual meeting. So our annual meeting will continue to be at around the NACS meeting. So this is a potential way, joining this group is a potential way to get your experiment station director to fund your travel to NACS. So I was just kind of throwing that out there. But finally, just a reminder of some of the communication tools that especially that Taylor has set up for us. The Google Drive, there is an email out there. I didn't have time to get the link put in here, but Taylor, you sent out an email with the link to the Google Drive probably a month and a half or 2 months ago. Is that correct?
To the group leaders, so they have it right now. And then once we
Only
meet
the
with
group
them-
leaders have it right
Yeah,
now.
and once we meet with them, we're gonna send it out to everyone.
All right, good.
I-
Thanks for that.
And I think that date might be a little off. I think SAS will be the first weekend of February. So I can't quite remember, Jeff, if we decided to do it the Saturday before or the like Monday afternoon after NACS, but we'll have that information sent out well in advance. But I didn't want anybody to mark their calendar for the
Good
24th.
point. Yeah, it's February something. Definitely not the 20. I don't think it's the 24th. I think that's probably inaccurate.
We're not gonna make you fly back to Irving again.
So yeah, so, it is at SAS with NACS. And then once we get everybody signed up, and if anybody else does sign up, we will continue to send out announcements. The one thing that NIMS is very good at is it keeps a roster of all of our members, and it also keeps a roster and gives us access to rosters of other multi-state projects. So if we want to communicate with our own members, or if we want to communicate to members of other multi-state project groups, we can do that pretty easily through this system. So that's helpful. All right, I think that wraps us up. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you, Taylor, for chiming in. Appreciate your input and all the work you've done on this. And thanks, Lisa, for agreeing to join our leadership. We're looking forward to getting you more involved. Ricky, back to you.
Great. All right, back to me. Feel like I'm on a sports play-by-play. Back to you in the control room. Yeah, glad to have, and of course the lawnmower started right outside my window just now, so that's great. So yeah, so everyone knows NACS, and that stands for the National Agricultural Communications Symposium. The dates for that in 2025 in Irving. If we continue what we've done in the past, it would be Sunday, Monday, which would be February 2nd and 3rd. And then this particular meeting that we talked about here that Jeff just mentioned, this last year was on a Tuesday, so it would be February the 4th, not the 24th. So February 2nd, 3rd, and technically the 4th for the Science Com meeting there too. So unless you want to go back to Irving 2 weeks later, like Taylor said, let's try not to do that. But anyway,
I think that was supposed to be a 2-4.
2-4. Of course, there's
Yeah, we
there's
left
the
out
hyphen.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
we
okay.
got hyphenated.
Now that you say that, that makes much more sense than the 24th. That's okay. With that, we have some time. We've got about 15-20 minutes or so for announcements or anything that anyone would like to bring up. Anyone want to share? Taylor, I see your hand. Go ahead.
I actually have. Yeah, I just had a quick announcement for NACS. You should have received an email. I think it was last week or the week before. We are looking for a volunteer to be our sponsor coordinator, somebody who can help us kind of manage those asks and solicitation for sponsorship for NACS. We're hoping this will be kind of a multi-year type of position. We want it to be somebody who's actually interested in helping to secure sponsorships too, instead of just tacking it on to our secretary or the past president, and they only do it for 1 year, since relationships are so important with that type of role. So if you are interested in that, please email. I think Audrey King was asking for those emails. So please shoot her email if you have any interest or if you have any questions. And I think at our next meeting, we'll be discussing that to hopefully figure out who that individual would be. We're not asking you to raise like hundreds of thousands. That would be really cool if you could. But we just need a little bit of extra manpower to help manage those conversations and to help us secure those funds, hopefully, so we can keep those costs down in the future. So please email Audrey King at Oklahoma State. That'd be great.
Thank you, Taylor. Other announcements, other comments? Whitney.
Everyone. Hello everyone. It's good to see y'all. We made an announcement through AAA, but we hired an additional faculty member to our department. Her name is Taylor Forrester Patterson. She is joining from us from Arizona State University. So we are excited to have her come on board. But yeah, I just want to keep folks updated and where we're growing and how we're growing. So
That's great. That's great. Anyone else? Well, if no one does, I have several, and maybe that'll jog people's memories. It's like, oh yeah, I forgot about that one. Okay, so in no particular order, but since you brought that up, Whitney, University of Florida also has announcements of new faculty. These have been out on the listservs as well. I'll start off with, because he is on, Jay On is going to be, yeah, hey Jay, wake up. Okay, there you go. Hey, we'll be starting with us on August 16th. As our new assistant professor, focusing in extension and specifically in artificial intelligence, or AI. So we're glad to have Jay on board starting in August. Yay. We also have Troy Tarpley and Shane White. They'll both start on July 1st. Troy here in Gainesville and Shane at our Plant City campus in the roles of instructional assistant professors in agriculture and natural resource communication. So they'll be joining us in just a 3 months there too. So we're very excited to have all those faculty positions brought on and hired. So we're very happy with that. I do want to mention, if you miss any of the webinars I'm putting here in the chat, that is the link, direct link to all of the webinars we've done. And I didn't even realize it, but until I just scrolled down, we've been doing this since 2018. This is a non-meeting, a non-organization. We call it the Society of Ag Communication Scholars, but we don't pay dues. It's really a webinar professional development thing. So all the way back to 2018. So look for all of the titles that you see there that would be of benefit to you. So this one will be added probably by the end of the week. So if you have a colleague that missed it, please, I'll send out word when we have it posted. Related to that, is the 2024-2025 webinar series. It's not too soon to start thinking about potential webinars and months that you would like to potentially submit a presentation for. And just because you submit a title or an idea doesn't mean that you're the one who has to do it all. You can always recruit others around you. So we'll start that probably in August, maybe September. It really depends on when most folks' academic year starts. And we do this usually on the 4th Monday of the month. We're different this month because AIAEE takes place next week. And I know a lot of us on this call are going to be there. So we didn't want to compete with that. But please do let me know. I'll send kind of a request for webinar topics probably in the next 3 to 4 weeks to try to flesh out the 2024-2025 webinars. Related to that, as many of you are co-authors or have edited the Agricultural Natural Resource Communications e-textbook, I would like to get some ideas about how people are using it, if people are using it. Hopefully people are using it. So be looking for an email from me in, again, the next couple of weeks or so before the end of the semester. And the reason why is that we are trying to get sponsors for specific chapters to help provide funding for the software and all the other things that go along with it. And a couple of them asked, how are people using it? Like, I don't know. So I would like to know. So if you've been adopting it for your class, if you've used any of the content for extension, professional development, if you have an idea of how many students are in your class, and it is, again, a wonderful resource, and it just has been accepted by National FFA as the resource for the agriculture communications career development event. So if you have high schools, middle schools, or your own universities that have ag communication programs, mainly middle school and high school that have adopted it, please let me know when I send that information to you, requesting that. Really, please let me know, because it will help us out overall, I think. And some of the things you've been talking about today, Jeff and Taylor and others, I think that individual chapters of the textbooks could be resources for a lot of the things we're talking about here in terms of science communication. Why reinvent the wheel? And it's not just the textbook, but if you scroll down the very first page, the homepage there, the teacher resource hub, that's been fleshed out quite a bit too. So you and high school teachers, whoever else, can sign on for that hub there. And there are lots and lots of great ideas of how you can apply the individual chapters for classes at all levels there too. So please use that. You all have contributed to it. Don't forget that it's there. It's a resource for all of us to use and to share. With that, the last thing I have really is, I mentioned AIAEE. We have among all of us in our discipline of ag communication, lots of conferences coming up over the next month and a half. We have that one coming up next week. Some of us will be at AAAE, NACTA, ACE, all between now and the end of June. So hopefully you'll be at one of those activities, events, conferences. And if so, try to get with somebody else and just talk about what's going on in your program, and share ideas for grants and topics of some of the things we've been doing on the webinar here. But it's a little more personable and personal when you get the opportunity to do it in person, face to face. So hopefully everyone will get a chance to go to a conference very soon. Any comments, questions before we go for the entire academic year? I almost said for the month. Ollie, who wants the last word? Don't leave it to me, because I will be the last word if I have to be. Don't laugh too hard there, Whitney and others. Okay. All the all laughing. It was like, I don't know. It was funny. You can laugh. It's perfectly fine. Okay. All right. No one wants to unmute themselves. Okay. Then I will say, on behalf of the Society of Agricultural Communication Scholars, everybody have a great April, and see each other again August or September 2024. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you, Ricky. Bye.